everybody, and welcome along to another Sherar Smokes. And you join me here on the bay at Torryburn village. Torryburn is a small village just along the road from Curis, where my good friend Mark and I visited just last week. Now, as promised, I have discovered the gravesite of the only known witch that was buried in Scotland. And already I can hear you saying, okay Sherar, well where exactly is that? And it's here, right over my shoulder, as she was buried on the beach in between low and high tide. Buried in a wooden box, and just to be sure they placed a slab of stone on top just to make sure that she wouldn't rise again. And what remains of that slab of stone is right here, and here's a picture. Now, the one good thing our ancestors were really good at back then was keeping records, so I've been able to build up a bit of a timeline. So we know that Lilias Airy was born in the village here in the 1600s, and she died in 1704. They say she was in her 60s at the time. Now Lilias was arrested for being a witch, and this all started, as most things start, by a rumour and spread quickly through the village, which resulted in Lilias being taken up and put in front of the local minister, who then put her to trial. And it's during this imprisonment and trial that Lilias was subjected to some terrible forms of torture to extract a confession and also names of other witches. Now it states in the record that once Lilias confessed, she came up with an elaborate story of how they would meet under the cover of darkness and the devil would appear to them. And she was unable to name other witches, as they all wore masks, so she was unable to identify, thus probably saving the lives of several other women in the village. So as we know, Lilias died whilst in custody. There were rumours of suicide, but it's probably more likely that she died from the injuries sustained through the methods of torture. And taken here to the beach, and as I said, buried between low and high tide. But the story doesn't end there. As records state, in 1852, grave robbers, antique grave robbers, came and ransacked the grave, and the coffin was used and broken down and used as souvenirs. And the great entrepreneur Andrew Carnegie, who came from Dunfermline just along the road, who of course made his fortune in America, he was presented with a walking stick made from the wood of the coffin. I believe now that the walking stick is in the hands of one of the Dunfermline museums, so that's something I need to go and check out at some point as well. Now in 1904, while the remains were still intact, photographs were taken and held at the Scotland National Library. After that, the bones disappeared, and a search is still ongoing, trying to relocate them. Lilias' skull reportedly was last seen in 1938 at the Great Empire Exhibition, which was held at Belhouston Park in Glasgow. And that is the last known sighting of Lilias' skull. And as I said, the search is still ongoing. In 2014, a team was set up and came out here to the bay to rediscover the gravesite, and that was when it was found that there were no remains left. Now, in 2017, these photographs that were taken in 1904 were used by the Dundee University to recreate a 3D model of what Lilias would have looked like. Now in 2019, a memorial service was held here on the beach, and the point of the service was more of a kind of an apology by members of the Scottish Parliament, and kind of to raise awareness of the persecution that thousands of women faced, and men as well included, during these dark times of the witch trials. So it's nice, although it's not the most happiest of stories, it's nice that 300 odd years later, Lilias is still remembered, and remembered here in the village. Actually, as I was walking along, I got chatting to an older lady who comes from the village, just to make sure I was heading in the right direction. And as we parted, her final words were, "You know, she wasn't really a witch." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And she was like, "Yeah, such a shame for the old dear." And I think we'd all agree with that. So talking of witchcraft leads me nicely on to the pipe I'm smoking, as there's definitely some form of black art involved in the making of this pipe. How else can you explain something that starts off in life as this, for it to end up like this? Then there's of course my shotgun poker, expertly made by Chris at BJV Pipes. Thank you, Chris. Smoking wonderfully well as always. Now, when I mention Chris at BJV Pipes, I always have to mention my good pal Granite City Piper, Kev, as it was Kev that got me, or put me in touch with Chris, so thank you, Kev, as always. And I just noticed that Kev put a video up the other day of a couple of packages he received, and another nice new pipe for Kevin's collection from another pipe maker, so I shall be looking into that as well, Kevin. And in the bowl, well, I've gone back to one of my favourites, and it is the cult Blood Red Moon. And Alan, if you're tuning in at some point, by now I know you've received your package, so I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the Blood Red Moon. So I'm going to take a walk along. There's a wee coastal path here, and there's another little bit of history I'd like to share with you, again involving the local witch trials, which may be of some interest, so join me for that. Now, in the distance there, we're looking at a bunch of rocks known locally as Witch's Rock. I shall just try and zoom in a little bit. Now, these rocks were used in the trials of witches, and what would happen is the accused would be strapped to these rocks and left until the high tide would come in. Now, if you were fortunate enough to drown, then you were found not guilty of being a witch. But if by some miracle you survived, then of course you'd be proclaimed as a witch, imprisoned, tortured, and most likely burnt at the stake. So for a small village, it has quite a macabre history. So there we have the sad tale of Lilias Edie, and some of the local, as I said, more macabre history of this little coastal village. Thankfully it stayed dry today. There was a bit of rain this morning, but I'm glad I made the effort to come out. It's only about 30 minutes away by car from where I stay, and this Fife coastal route is just superb. There's so many amazing spots, and there's still a few more to share with you, especially when the summer months come in. So hopefully you'll join me for those. But I'm just going to sit here and finish off what's in the bowl. The breeze is starting to pick up now. It's coming in off the 1st of 4th, so it's getting slightly chillier. But as I said, I'm going to enjoy a quiet bowl before heading back home and packing my bags for work. Once I go to work, that's me there for the next 3 nights. But thankfully off at the weekend, so we shall see what that brings. So until then, thanks as always for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of the week, and as always, my name's Sherar. Enjoy your smokes.